The stagecoach door swung open, and Eli Thornton's whole world cracked in half. He'd hired a cook. What stepped out was a ghost from 3 years past, and a boy who wore his own face. Gray-blue eyes. His eyes. That stubborn cowlick. His cowlick. And there, peeking above the child's collar, a crescent-shaped birthmark on the right shoulder. The same birthmark Eli had carried since birth. The woman wouldn't meet his gaze. Her hands trembled around the boy's small frame. 3 years of silence. 3 years of lies. Now that lie had a name, a heartbeat, and his blood running through its veins. Would you claim a son you never knew existed? Stay with me until the end. Hit that subscribe button and comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. Clara Whitmore's knees nearly buckled when she saw him. He stood on that porch like he owned the whole Montana territory. Broad shoulders, hard jaw, those same gray-blue eyes she'd been staring at for 3 years in her son's face. Eli Thornton hadn't changed. Still tall, still stone-faced, still looking at the world like it owed him an explanation. Well, she had one, and he wasn't going to like it. "Mama," Samuel tugged her sleeve, "is this the place?" "Yes, sweetheart." "It's big." "It is." "Is the man on the porch mean?" "He looks mean." Clara's throat tightened. "I don't know yet." The stagecoach driver handed down their bags, 2 worn cases holding everything they owned in the world. 3 dresses, Samuel's clothes, a Bible, a photograph of her dead father, and exactly $4.37 hidden in the lining of her corset. That was it. That was the sum total of Clara Whitmore's life. $4 to her name, and a secret that could destroy everything. Eli descended the porch steps, each footfall deliberate, measured, like a man approaching a rattlesnake and deciding whether to kill it or walk away. His eyes swept over her once, twice, then dropped to Samuel, and stopped. Clara watched the color drain from his face, watched his hands curl into fists at his sides, watched 3 years of hidden truth slam into him like a freight train. "Mr. Thornton," she forced her voice steady, "I'm here about the cook position." He didn't answer. Couldn't answer. His eyes were locked on Samuel's face, traveling over every feature like a man reading his own death warrant. The cowlick, the jawline, the way Samuel tilted his head when he was studying something new. Eli's head. Eli's gesture. Eli's blood. "You're tall," Samuel said, breaking the silence with a blunt honesty only children possessed. "Are you a giant?" "No." Eli's voice came out scraped raw. "Just a man." "You look like me." The words hung in the frozen air. Simple. Devastating. True. Clara's heart stopped. Samuel had noticed. Of course he'd noticed. The boy was 3 years old, not blind. He'd spent his whole short life surrounded by people who looked nothing like him. Dark-haired when everyone else was fair. Gray-eyed when everyone else was brown. Now here stood a stranger who could have been his reflection in 20 years. "Samuel," Clara gripped his shoulder. "Let's go inside. It's cold." "But, Mama!" Now. An older man appeared from the barn. Weathered face, salt and pepper beard, eyes that had seen too much and forgot nothing. "Boss?" He looked between Eli and Clara, taking in the tension thick enough to cut. "This the new cook?" Eli still hadn't moved, still hadn't spoken. His eyes remained fixed on Samuel, like he was trying to solve an impossible equation. "Get her bags," he finally said. "Guest room." And the boy? Him too. The foreman, Dusty, Clara would learn later, grabbed their cases without another word. Smart man. He knew when to ask questions and when to disappear. The stagecoach driver was already climbing back onto his seat, eager to escape whatever storm was brewing. Gossip traveled fast in these parts. By nightfall, every ranch within 50 miles would know Eli Thornton's new cook had arrived with a child who looked exactly like him. Clara lifted her chin and walked toward the house, one foot in front of the other, same as she'd been doing for 3 years, same as she'd keep doing until she couldn't anymore. Behind her, she heard Eli's boots on the frozen ground, following, processing, deciding. The main room was exactly what she'd expected. Sparse, functional, a bachelor's space with no warmth, no softness, no sign that anyone had ever loved here. Good. She hadn't come for love. She'd come for survival. Samuel, she knelt before her son. Go explore the room where Mr. Durham put our bags. Stay inside. Don't touch anything. But I want to see the horses. Later. Promise? I promise. Now go. The boy scampered off, the wooden floor creaking under his small feet. Clara watched him disappear down the hallway, then turned to face the man she'd been running from for 3 years. Eli stood by the fireplace, arms crossed, jaw set like granite. You've got exactly 1 minute, he said, to explain why you brought my son to my ranch without telling me he existed. There it was. No dancing around it. No pretending they both didn't know exactly what was happening. Clara had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. In boarding house rooms, in cramped apartments, in the back of stagecoaches rolling across endless prairie. She'd imagined crying, begging, apologizing. Now, standing here, she felt none of those things. She felt angry. Your son? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Your son. That's rich, Eli. You want to claim him now, after 3 years of nothing? I didn't know, because you didn't stay long enough to find out. The words hit him like a slap. Good. Let them sting. One night, Clara stepped closer, her voice dropping to a hiss. One night in St. Louis. You remember it? The hotel restaurant? The conversation that went on for hours. The way you looked at me, like I was the only woman in the world. His jaw tightened. I remember. And the morning after? Do you remember that too? Silence. You left before dawn, didn't even leave a note, just gone. Like I was nothing. Like that night was nothing. It wasn't nothing. Then why did you run? Eli's hands dropped to his sides. For a moment, something flickered across his face. Something that might have been regret. I had a ranch to get back to. Responsibilities. I couldn't what? Couldn't stay for breakfast? Couldn't ask my last name? Couldn't give me any way to contact you if something happened? I didn't think... No, you didn't. Clara's voice cracked, but she forced herself to keep going. You didn't think about anything except yourself, and I paid the price. She pulled back her shoulders, swallowing the tears that threatened to fall. I found out 3 weeks after you left. Pregnant, unmarried, working for a widow who fired me the moment she found out because she couldn't have an immoral woman in her household. Eli flinched. I had nothing, Eli. No family, no money, no prospects. Do you know what happens to unmarried mothers in this world? Do you have any idea? Clara, they call us whores. They call our children bastards. They refuse to rent us rooms, or give us work, or even look us in the eye. Her hands were shaking now. I spent 3 years clawing my way through hell to keep that boy alive. 3 years of mending other people's clothes until my fingers bled. 3 years of taking whatever scraps people threw at me because I had a child to feed. Why didn't you find me? How? She threw her hands up. You never told me your last name. Just Eli. Just, I have a ranch in Montana. Do you know how many ranchers there are in Montana? Hundreds. Thousands. I was supposed to search them all, with a baby on my hip and $4 in my pocket. Eli turned away, pressing his palms against the mantel. I would have helped, if I'd known. Would you? Clara moved around to face him. Would you really? 3 years ago, would you have welcomed a pregnant stranger showing up at your door? Would your neighbors have accepted an unmarried mother? Would your business partners have understood? He didn't answer. That's what I thought. The fire crackled between them. Outside, wind rattled the windows, carrying the promise of the season's first real snow. Why are you here now? Eli asked quietly. Why not keep hiding forever? Because I ran out of options. Clara's voice flattened. The boarding house where I worked closed 3 months ago. I've been taking whatever jobs I could find. Mending, cleaning, cooking for parties. But work dried up. Money ran out. Landlords don't wait forever. So you saw my advertisement. I saw your name, Eli Thornton, Thunder Ridge Ranch, Montana Territory. She met his eyes. I recognized it from a newspaper article about the Cattle Association. Successful rancher, respected businessman. And I thought, maybe. Maybe he's changed. Maybe he'll at least give me honest work. You could have told me in the letter about Samuel. And have you refused to hire me? Or worse, hire me out of guilt and resent us both? She shook her head. I needed this job on my own merit. I needed to know I could earn my keep without relying on your conscience. So you lied. I omitted. There's a difference. Not much of one. Clara felt her temper flare. You want to talk about lies? Fine. Let's talk about the lie you told me in St. Louis. The one where you looked me in the eyes and said that night meant something. Was that true, Eli? Or was I just convenient? His head snapped up. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? He stopped, ran a hand through his hair. I don't know. I was different then. Harder. More closed off. I'd spent years convincing myself I didn't need anyone. And now? Now I've got a 3-year-old boy down the hall who just asked if I was his papa. The words hung between them, heavy as stone. Clara felt something shift in her chest. Not forgiveness, not yet, but something. He's been asking about his father since he could talk, she said quietly. I've told him his papa lives far away, that someday, maybe, they'd meet. What did you tell him about me? Nothing. I didn't know anything about you except a first name and a memory of one night. Eli's shoulders sagged. For the first time since she'd arrived, he looked less like a stone wall and more like a man carrying weight he didn't know how to bear. I don't know how to be a father, he said. Neither did anyone else the first time. That's not helpful. It's not meant to be. It's just true. They stood in silence, the fire burning low between them. Clara could hear Samuel's voice drifting down the hallway, talking to himself as he explored their temporary quarters. I'm not asking you to be his father, she finally said. I'm not asking for marriage or money or acknowledgement. I'm just asking for work. A job through winter. A chance to save enough to start fresh somewhere come spring. And Samuel? I'll keep him out of your way. He's well behaved. Won't interfere with ranch operations. That's not what I meant. Clara studied his face, trying to read what lay beneath the granite surface. Then what did you mean? Eli turned to stare into the fire. The light cast shadows across his features, making him look older, wearier. He's my son. I'm not going to pretend he doesn't exist. What are you saying? I'm saying you both stay. Through winter. We'll figure out the rest as we go. It wasn't a declaration of love. It wasn't even a promise of responsibility. But it was more than Clara had allowed herself to hope for. All right, she nodded slowly. We'll see how it goes. One condition. What? No more lies. No more omissions. Eli met her eyes, and something fierce burned there. If we're going to do this, whatever this is, it's built on truth. Understand? I understand. Good. Small footsteps echoed from the hallway. Samuel appeared in the doorway, clutching something in his hands. A carved wooden horse, worn smooth from years of sitting untouched on a shelf. I found this. The boy held it up, his face glowing. Can I have it? Please? Clara started to refuse. They couldn't just take things. But Eli spoke first. I made that. Years ago. Always figured someday I'd have a son to give it to. The words stole Clara's breath. You made it for a son? Samuel's eyes went wide. For me? Didn't know about you then, but yeah. Eli's voice roughened. Guess it was always meant to be yours. Samuel clutched the horse to his chest like it was made of gold. His smile could have lit the whole room. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. What do you say, Samuel? Clara managed. I said thank you. 3 times. Despite everything, the tension, the anger, the years of pain, Eli's mouth twitched. 3 times is good. Dusty appeared in the doorway, stomping snow from his boots. Getting dark, boss. Storm's rolling in faster than expected. Miguel and Tommy are securing the barn, but we've got a problem. Eli's expression hardened. What kind of problem? Victor Ashford sent a rider. Says he wants his money by end of month, or he's calling the loan. Clara watched the blood drain from Eli's face for the 2nd time that day. That's 3 weeks early. Told the rider that. He said Ashford don't care. Says winter's coming hard, and he wants his cash before the passes close. Dusty's jaw tightened. Also said something about how a man who can't manage his finances probably can't manage a ranch either, and how there are folks in town who'd pay good money for Thunder Ridge land. Clara didn't know who Victor Ashford was, but she understood predators. She'd spent 3 years learning to recognize them. How much? She asked. Both men turned to look at her. How much does he owe? Eli's eyes narrowed. That's not your concern. I just traveled 1,000 miles with your son. I'd say that makes it my concern. Dusty coughed, hiding what might have been a laugh. $1,200, Eli said flatly. Due in January. Now apparently due in 3 weeks. Clara's mind raced. $1,200. An impossible sum. Enough to buy a small house outright. Enough to live on for years. Enough to destroy everything Eli had built. There's got to be another option, she said. Another bank, a business partner, something. This is Montana territory, not Boston. There are no other banks, and partners require trust, which requires time, which we don't have. Eli grabbed his coat from the peg by the door. Dusty, we need to inventory the herd. Figure out what we can sell and how fast. In this weather? Storms already? Then we work fast. Eli was out the door before Clara could say another word. Dusty close behind. She stood alone in the main room, Samuel still clutching his wooden horse, looking up at her with confused eyes. Is the tall man in trouble, Mama? I don't know, sweetheart. Can we help him? Clara looked at the door, still rattling from the force of Eli's exit. Through the window, she could see snow beginning to fall in earnest, thick flakes swirling in the fading light. 3 years ago, Eli Thornton had walked out of her life without looking back. Now, she'd walked into his, bringing chaos and complication, and a secret that could destroy his reputation. She owed him nothing. He owed her nothing. But that boy, clutching a wooden horse, he deserved better than watching his father lose everything before they'd even had a chance to know each other. Maybe, Clara said slowly. Maybe we can. She knelt down, taking Samuel's small hands in hers. Listen to me, sweetheart. We're going to stay here for a while. The tall man, his name is Mr. Thornton. This is his home, and we're guests. I need you to be very good, very quiet, very helpful. Can you do that? Is he my papa? The question she'd been dreading, the one she'd been avoiding for 3 years. Clara looked into her son's eyes, Eli's eyes, and made a decision. I think he might be, she said, but it's complicated. He didn't know about you before today. Samuel's brow furrowed. Why not? Because I didn't tell him. Why not? Because, Clara swallowed hard. Because I was scared. Because I didn't know if he would want us. Because sometimes adults make mistakes, and then we have to live with them. Samuel considered this with the gravity only a 3-year-old could muster. Do you think he wants us now? Clara thought of the way Eli had looked at Samuel. The shock. The recognition. The something underneath that might have been wonder. I think he's trying to figure that out. I want him to want us. Samuel's voice was small. I want a papa, Mama. All the other boys have papas. Clara pulled him close, blinking back tears. I know, sweetheart. I know. Outside, the storm intensified. Wind howled around the corners of the house, rattling windows and driving snow against the walls. Somewhere in that chaos, Eli and his men were working to save a ranch that was 1 bad month away from destruction. And Clara, who had sworn she would never need anyone again, found herself wanting to help. Not for Eli's sake, not even for her own. For the boy in her arms, who deserved a father and a home, and a chance at the life she'd never been able to give him. She settled Samuel in their temporary room, made sure he had the wooden horse and a blanket, and a promise that she'd return soon. Then she walked to the kitchen. If she was going to earn her keep, she might as well start now. The stove was cold. The larder was barely stocked. But Clara had worked with less before. She'd fed boarding house full of people on scraps and stubbornness. She could certainly manage 1 ranch. 3 hours later, when Eli and Dusty stumbled back inside, frozen and exhausted, they found hot stew waiting on the table, fresh biscuits, strong coffee. Eli stopped in the doorway, snow melting from his coat, and stared. You didn't have to do this. It's what you hired me for. I hired you to start tomorrow. I started today. Clara wiped her hands on her apron. Sit down. Eat. You're no good to anyone if you freeze to death. Dusty was already at the table, shoveling stew into his mouth like a man who hadn't eaten in days. Ma'am, he said around a mouthful, this is the best meal I've had in 6 months. Maybe longer. Told you she could cook, Eli muttered, taking his own seat. You didn't know if I could cook. You hoped I could cook. There's a difference. There's that word again. Difference. Eli looked up at her, and something passed between them. Something complicated. Something that might have been respect. Seems like you're fond of differences. Seems like you're fond of assumptions. Dusty glanced between them, eyebrows rising. I'm going to eat in the barn, he announced, grabbing his bowl and biscuits. Got a mare that needs watching anyway. Dusty, Eli started. Good night, boss. Ma'am. And he was gone, leaving them alone in the lamplight. Clara busied herself cleaning the stove, anything to avoid the weight of Eli's stare. Samuel's asleep, she said. I put him in the guest room. I hope that's acceptable. It's fine. He has the wooden horse. He wouldn't let go of it. Good. Silence stretched between them. The fire crackled. Wind moaned outside. The loan, Clara finally said. How bad is it, really? Bad enough. Eli set down his spoon. Ashford's been circling this ranch for years, waiting for me to stumble. This winter, the early frost, the cattle losses, it gave him an opening. And if you can't pay? He takes the land. Everything I've built for 8 years. Gone. Clara thought of the house she was standing in. Sparse and cold, yes, but solid. Built by a man's own hands. Filled with years of labor and hope and stubborn determination. That won't happen, she said. Eli laughed bitterly. You've been here 4 hours, and you're already making promises you can't keep. I'm not making promises. I'm stating facts. She turned to face him. You built this ranch once. You can save it now. You just need time and money. Time I might have. Money I don't. Then we find another way. We? Eli's eyebrow rose. There's no we here, Clara. You're the cook. I'm the rancher. Your job is to feed people. My job is to figure out how to keep this place standing. My job is to take care of my son. And right now, my son is sleeping in your guest room, dreaming about wooden horses and maybe having a father for the first time in his life. Clara's voice hardened. So if you think I'm going to sit quietly in the kitchen while everything falls apart around us, you don't know me at all. I don't know you at all. That's the point. Then let me show you. They stared at each other across the table. Two strangers bound by one night and one child and circumstances neither of them had chosen. Fine, Eli said finally. You want to help? Tomorrow we inventory the larder. Figure out what we need for winter. Make a list. Keep it tight. Every penny matters now. I've been keeping budgets since I was 16. I can manage that. Good. Then get some sleep. Morning comes early on a ranch. Clara nodded and moved toward the hallway. Clara, she stopped. That stew. It was good. The compliment was grudging, barely spoken, but it was something. It was nothing special, just what I had to work with. That's the point, Eli met her eyes. Making something from nothing. That's a skill. I've had practice. She continued down the hall, feeling his gaze on her back until she turned the corner. In the guest room, Samuel slept peacefully, the wooden horse clutched to his chest. His dark hair splayed across the pillow, his small chest rising and falling in the rhythm of innocent dreams. Clara sat on the edge of the bed, watching him breathe. 3 years. 3 years of running, hiding, surviving. And now here they were, in the house of the man who changed everything with one night and one choice to leave. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. Didn't know if Eli would accept Samuel or reject them both. Didn't know if the ranch would survive or crumble, but she knew one thing for certain. She was done running. Whatever happened next, she would face it standing up. For Samuel. For herself. And maybe, just maybe, for the family she'd never dared to dream they could be. Outside, the storm raged on. Snow piled against the windows, sealing them in. Winter had arrived at Thunder Ridge Ranch, and nothing would ever be the same again. Morning came hard and fast. Clara woke to the sound of boots on wooden floors, men's voices low and urgent, the clatter of pots she hadn't put away the night before. Samuel was still asleep, the wooden horse pressed against his cheek. She tucked the blanket tighter around him, and slipped out of the room. The kitchen was chaos. Dusty stood at the stove, attempting something that might have been eggs. Smoke curled toward the ceiling. Two younger men she hadn't met sat at the table, watching the disaster unfold with expressions that suggested this was a daily occurrence. "Ma'am," Dusty spotted her and stepped back from the stove with visible relief. "Didn't mean to wake you." "You didn't." Clara crossed to the stove, assessed the damage, and scraped the blackened mess into the slop bucket. "How many am I feeding?" "5 total. Me, Miguel, Tommy, and the boss." Dusty gestured to the two men at the table. "Miguel Santos and Tommy Walker. Boys, this is Miss—" "I'm sorry, ma'am. I don't believe I caught your name proper." "Clara Bennett." The lie came easier now. She'd been using it for 3 years. "Mrs. Bennett." "Mrs.?" Tommy, the younger one, looked confused. "Where's your husband?" "Dead." Another lie. Another necessity. "Sorry to hear that, ma'am." "It was a long time ago." She cracked eggs into a clean pan, found bacon in the cold box, started coffee in the battered pot. Her hands moved automatically, muscle memory taking over, while her mind raced. 5 men, 3 meals a day, limited supplies. A budget that was already stretched thin before she'd arrived. "Where's the ledger?" she asked. Dusty blinked. "The what?" "The household accounts, supply lists, budget records. Boss keeps those in his office, such as it is. I'll need to see them, today." "You'll have to ask him yourself." Dusty accepted the plate she handed him with something approaching reverence. "He don't like people poking through his papers. He hired me to manage the household. That includes knowing what we have and what we need." Miguel and Tommy exchanged glances, but said nothing. Clara suspected very few people talked back to Eli Thornton on his own ranch. Well, she wasn't most people. Breakfast was served and consumed in record time. The men ate like they hadn't seen real food in months, which, based on Dusty's cooking attempt, might have been accurate. "Ma'am?" Miguel set down his fork, his accent softening the word. "This is very good. Very, very good." "Best biscuits I've ever had," Tommy added, reaching for his third. "Even better than my mama's, and she'd skin me for saying so." "Thank you." Clara allowed herself a small smile. "There'll be lunch at noon, dinner at 6. If you're late, you eat cold." "Yes, ma'am." "And if you track mud into my kitchen, you'll clean it yourself." "Yes, ma'am." They filed out into the gray morning, leaving Clara alone with dirty dishes and 100 questions. She was elbow-deep in wash water when Eli appeared. He looked worse than the night before. Dark circles under his eyes, jaw tight with tension. He moved like a man carrying weight he couldn't set down. "You're up early," he said. "Ranchers wake with the chickens, or so I've heard." "We don't have chickens." "Then someone should fix that. Fresh eggs would stretch the food budget considerably." Eli poured himself coffee and leaned against the counter, watching her work. "You've already calculated the food budget?" "I've estimated. I'll know more once I see the actual accounts." "Dusty said you asked about the ledger." "I did." "Those records are private." Clara set down the plate she was washing and turned to face him. "Mr. Thornton, you hired me to manage your household. That means cooking, cleaning, supply ordering, and budget maintenance. I cannot do my job effectively if I don't know what resources are available." "You can cook without seeing my financial records." "I can cook without seeing them, yes, but I can't save you money without knowing where you're spending it." She dried her hands on her apron. "You said last night that every penny matters. Did you mean it, or was that just talk?" Eli's eyes narrowed. "You've got a sharp tongue." "I've got a brain. There's a difference." For a long moment, they stared at each other. Clara refused to look away first. Finally, Eli set down his coffee cup. Fine, I'll show you the books. But Clara. He stepped closer, his voice dropping. What you see in those pages stays between us. The men don't need to know how bad things are. Understood. And if you breathe a word of our situation to anyone in town, anyone at all, we're done. You and Samuel will be on the next stage out of here. I have no one to tell and nothing to gain from gossip. Clara met his gaze steadily. Your secrets are safe with me. I'm good at keeping them. Something flickered across his face. Recognition of the double meaning. Yeah, he said quietly. I reckon you are. The office was small, barely more than a closet off the main room. A desk covered in papers, a chair that had seen better decades, shelves stuffed with records and receipts and correspondence. Eli handed her a worn leather ledger. Everything's in there. Income, expenses, debts, projections. Clara opened it, scanning the columns with practiced efficiency. Her father had been a merchant before his business failed. She'd learned bookkeeping at his knee, helping him track inventory and manage accounts. Those skills had saved her life more than once in the years since. Your feed costs are too high, she said after several minutes. You're paying premium prices for grain that should cost 30% less. Peterson's the only supplier within 2 days' ride. Then you negotiate harder or find alternatives. She flipped pages. And these equipment repairs. You're replacing parts that could be fixed. A good blacksmith would save you $50 a year minimum. We don't have a blacksmith. You have a forge. I saw it in the barn. Nobody knows how to use it proper. Clara filed that information away. What about the cattle? Your numbers show 300 head, but your income projections assume 250. Lost 50 in the early frost. Another dozen to the cold last week. Eli's jaw tightened. Plus whatever we'll lose before spring. So your income estimates are optimistic at best. They're what I need to show the bank. Clara closed the ledger and looked at him. Mr. Thornton, your debt is $1,200. Your projected income, even with optimistic numbers, is barely $900. You're running a deficit of $300 with no reserves to cover it. I'm aware. Then you're also aware that even if Victor Ashford gives you the full term, you still can't make the payment. Eli turned away, his shoulders rigid. I'll figure something out. What? What will you figure out? Clara moved around to face him. You can't sell cattle you don't have. You can't grow money from the snow. Unless you're hiding a gold mine somewhere on this property, you need a real plan. And you've got one, I suppose? I've got ideas. Whether they're good ones remains to be seen. Let's hear them. Clara took a breath. This was the moment. The chance to prove she was more than just a cook. First, cut every non-essential expense immediately. No supply runs to town that aren't absolutely necessary. No equipment purchases that can wait. Every dollar saved is a dollar toward the debt. Already doing that. Second, diversify your income. Cattle aren't the only thing that makes money on a ranch this size. You've got timber in the hills. You've got water rights. You could take in horses for winter boarding from ranches that don't have adequate shelter. Eli frowned. That's a lot of extra work for not much return. Small returns add up, and it's better than nothing. What else? Third, Clara hesitated. This was the risky part. Find out why Ashford is calling the loan early. There has to be a reason beyond simple greed. The reason is he wants my land. But why now? Why not wait until you actually default? If he calls the loan early and you somehow scrape together the money, he gets nothing. It's a gamble on his part. Clara shook her head. Men like Ashford don't gamble unless they're sure they'll win. Eli stared at her. You think he knows something. I think he's betting you can't pay. which means either he knows your situation better than he should, or he's planning to make sure you can't pay. She paused. Has anything unusual happened lately? Equipment failures? Missing cattle beyond what the weather explains? You're suggesting sabotage. I'm suggesting we consider all possibilities. Eli was quiet for a long moment. Clara watched him process, watched the wheels turn behind those gray-blue eyes. There have been things, he finally admitted. Small things. A fence that broke in a place it shouldn't have. A water trough that was empty when it should have been full. I blamed bad luck, harsh conditions. And now? Now I'm not so sure. A small voice came from the doorway. Mama? Clara turned. Samuel stood there, wooden horse in hand, looking sleepy and confused. Good morning, sweetheart. I woke up and you weren't there. I'm sorry, I was talking with Mr. Thornton. Clara held out her hand. Are you hungry? Samuel nodded, but his eyes were fixed on Eli. Are you still here? The boy asked. I live here. I know, Samuel struggled with words too big for his 3-year-old vocabulary. I thought maybe you left, like you did before. Clara's heart clenched. She'd never told Samuel the full story, but children understood more than adults gave them credit for. Eli crouched down, bringing himself to Samuel's eye level. I'm not going anywhere, he said quietly. This is my home. Is it my home too? For now, yeah. What about later? We'll see. It wasn't the answer Clara would have chosen. Too uncertain, too non-committal. But Samuel seemed to accept it, nodding with the gravity only small children possessed. Okay, he said. Can I see the horses today? After breakfast, Clara said firmly. And after you wash your face and hands, I'll take him. Both Clara and Samuel turned to Eli in surprise. To the horses, he clarified. After breakfast, if that's all right with you. Clara studied his face, looking for the catch. Finding none, that would be fine. Good, Eli straightened. I need to check the stock anyway. Might as well have company. He left the office without another word, his boots echoing down the hallway. Samuel tugged Clara's hand. Mama, does the tall man like me? I think he's trying to figure that out. I want him to like me. I know, sweetheart. Clara knelt down and straightened his collar. Just be yourself. That's all anyone can ask. Breakfast was a quieter affair than she'd expected. Samuel ate his eggs with intense concentration, while Eli worked through biscuits and bacon, stealing glances at the boy when he thought no one was watching. Clara saw everything. She'd spent 3 years learning to read people, to anticipate their moods and reactions. It was how you survived when you had no power and no protection. Eli was conflicted. That much was obvious. He wanted to connect with Samuel, but didn't know how. Every gesture was stiff, every word carefully measured. He was afraid of doing it wrong. Good. That meant he cared enough to worry. You ready? Eli asked when Samuel finished his last bite. The boy nodded eagerly, practically vibrating with excitement. Stay close to Mr. Thornton, Clara instructed. Don't touch anything unless he says it's all right. And if he tells you to move, you move. Horses are big and powerful, and they can hurt you without meaning to. I know, Mama. I'll be careful. I'll have him back in an hour, Eli said. It might have been her imagination, but his voice seemed softer. Maybe 2. Take your time. She watched them walk out together, her son and his father, side by side for the first time. Samuel's small hand reached up, hovering near Eli's larger one, not quite touching. Eli looked down, saw the gesture, and after a moment's hesitation, took the boy's hand in his own. Samuel's smile could have melted the snow outside. Clara turned away before either of them could see the tears in her eyes. The morning passed in a blur of activity. Clara inventoried the larder, making detailed notes of what they had and what they'd need. The supplies were adequate, but not generous. They'd make it through winter if she was careful, but there was no room for waste. She found cleaning supplies in a closet that looked like it hadn't been opened in months. The house hadn't seen a proper scrubbing in far too long. Dust coated every surface. Cobwebs claimed corners. The windows were so dirty the light barely came through. By the time Eli returned with Samuel, Clara had cleaned the kitchen from top to bottom and started on the main room. "Mama! Mama! Mama!" Samuel burst through the door, his face flushed with cold and excitement. "I petted a horse!"
Her name is Bess, and she's really big and really soft, and she let me touch her nose, and Mr. Thornton, Eli, he said maybe someday he'll teach me to ride. Clara's eyebrow rose. Eli? He said I could call him that. Samuel looked suddenly uncertain. Is that wrong? No, sweetheart, that's fine. She looked past him to Eli, who stood in the doorway, snow dusting his shoulders. Thank you for taking him. He's good with the animals. Calm. Patient. Eli stamped his boots on the mat. Doesn't spook easy. He gets that from his father. The words hung in the air. Clara hadn't meant to say them. They'd slipped out before she could stop them. Eli's expression flickered. Something raw crossed his features, there and gone in an instant. I need to ride out to the north pasture, he said. Check on the cattle there. Dusty says there might be fence damage from the storm. How long will you be gone? Few hours, maybe more if the damage is bad. I'll have dinner ready when you get back. Eli nodded and turned to leave, then stopped. Clara? Yes? Those ideas you mentioned, the timber, the water rights, the horse boarding? He didn't turn around. Write them down, all of them, every detail. We'll talk tonight. You're considering them? I'm considering everything. Now he turned, and his eyes held hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. I'm not losing this ranch. Not to Ashford. Not to anyone. Then we'll make sure you don't. Something passed between them. An understanding. A partnership, however reluctant. Then he was gone, the door closing behind him, leaving Clara alone with 1,000 thoughts and a small boy tugging at her skirt. Mama, can I draw pictures of Bess? Of course, sweetheart. Let me find you some paper. The afternoon was quiet. Samuel drew at the kitchen table while Clara worked, the scratch of his chalk a gentle counterpoint to her movements. She prepared a stew for dinner, made bread dough to rise, organized the pantry into something approaching order. Around 3 o'clock, Dusty came in for coffee. Storm's picking up again, he said, warming his hands by the stove. Boss still out at the north pasture? As far as I know. He should have been back by now. Dusty frowned. That fence wasn't more than an hour's ride. Clara felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. Could he have been delayed? Could be. Damage might have been worse than expected. But Dusty's frown deepened. Or could be something else. What kind of something else? In these parts, could be anything. Weather turns on a dime. Horse throws a shoe. Man falls, hits his head. He paused. Or could be trouble of the two-legged variety. You think someone might have hurt him? I think Victor Ashford's been sniffing around this ranch for months, and I think it's mighty convenient that our problem started getting worse right around the time he started getting pushy. Dusty set down his coffee cup. I'm going to ride out, see if I can find him. Take someone with you. Miguel's already in the south pasture. Tommy's watching the barn. Dusty shook his head. I'll be fine. Done this 1,000 times. Then be careful. He nodded and headed for the door, stopping when Samuel's small voice piped up. Mr. Dusty?
Yeah, son?
Is Eli going to be okay?
Dusty looked at the boy, really looked at him, and Clara saw something soften in the old foreman's weathered face. Your papa's the toughest man I know, he said. He'll be fine. The word hit Clara like a thunderclap. Papa. Dusty had called Eli Samuel's papa. Samuel didn't seem surprised. He just nodded solemnly and returned to his drawing. After Dusty left, Clara found herself pacing. The storm was indeed worsening. Wind rattled the windows, and snow fell so thick she could barely see the barn. Somewhere out there, Eli was riding through this. Maybe hurt, maybe lost, maybe worse. She told herself it wasn't her concern. She'd known the man less than 2 days. Whatever happened to him was his own business. But Samuel's words echoed in her head. Is Eli going to be okay? And Dusty's response, your papa. Whether she liked it or not, Eli Thornton was part of their lives now. His fate was tangled up with theirs. If he fell, they fell with him. The waiting was agony. She kept busy, cooking, cleaning, entertaining Samuel with stories and games. But part of her mind was always on that door, listening for footsteps, watching for shadows. Darkness fell. The storm howled. No one came. Samuel grew anxious, refusing to eat his dinner, asking every few minutes if Eli was back yet. Soon, sweetheart, Clara said, not believing it herself. Eat your stew. I'm not hungry. You need to eat. But what if he's hurt? What if he's lost in the snow? Mr. Dusty went to find him. They'll be back soon. Promise? Clara hesitated. She'd made a rule long ago never to promise things she couldn't guarantee. But the fear in her son's eyes broke something in her. I promise, she said. They'll be back. Please, God, she prayed silently. Don't make me a liar. An hour later, the door burst open. Dusty came through first, half carrying Eli, whose face was pale and drawn with pain. Blood stained the snow on his coat sleeve. He moved with a limp that spoke of more injuries hidden beneath the surface. What happened? Clara was at their side instantly, helping guide Eli to a chair. Horse spooked. Threw him. Dusty's voice was grim. Found him half a mile from the north pasture, trying to walk back. Shoulders banged up, maybe dislocated. Ankles twisted. And he's got a cut on his head that won't stop bleeding. I'm fine, Eli growled. You're not fine. You're lucky you're not dead. The horse ran off. I'll find her tomorrow if the storm breaks. Dusty eased Eli into the chair. Right now, you need patching up. Clara was already moving. Hot water, clean cloths, the medical supplies she'd seen in the kitchen cupboard. Samuel, go to our room, she ordered. Now. But Mama, now, Samuel. The boy fled, wooden horse clutched to his chest. Clara knelt beside Eli and began cutting away his sleeve. The cut on his arm was deep but clean. It would need stitches, but she'd done that before. The head wound was more concerning. Blood matted his dark hair, making it hard to see the damage underneath. Hold still, she said when he tried to pull away. It's not that bad. I'll decide what's bad. She cleaned the head wound first, relieved to find it was shallow despite the blood. Head wounds always bled more than they should. What spooked the horse? Eli's jaw tightened. Gunshot. Clara's hands stilled. Someone shot at you? Shot near me. Close enough to spook the horse. Not close enough to hit. His eyes met hers, and she saw cold fury there. It wasn't an accident. Ashford? Who else? Can you prove it? No. The word came out bitter. That's the point. Can't prove anything. Just bad luck. Harsh conditions. A spooked horse. Dusty cursed under his breath. I knew it. I knew something wasn't right about all this. Knowing and proving are different things. Eli winced as Clara began stitching his arm. Ashford's too smart to leave evidence. Everything can be explained away. So what do we do? We survive. We pay the debt. We don't give him any excuse to take this land. And if we can't pay? Eli didn't answer. Clara finished the stitches and wrapped his arm in clean bandages. The shoulder wasn't dislocated, just badly bruised. The ankle was swollen, but not broken. He'd been lucky. Incredibly, impossibly lucky. You need rest, she said. And food.
When did you last eat? Breakfast. That was 12 hours ago.
I've gone longer.
Not on my watch.
She stood, hands on hips. Dusty, help him to his room. I'll bring dinner. I can walk on my own. You can barely stand. Don't argue with me, Eli. You won't win. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or respect. Fine, he said. But we're not done talking about Ashford. Tomorrow, after you've slept. Dusty helped Eli down the hall, leaving Clara alone in the kitchen with blood-stained cloths and the cold realization that things were worse than she'd imagined. Someone had tried to hurt Eli, maybe kill him, and they'd almost succeeded. If Eli died, the ranch would collapse. Samuel would lose his father before he'd even had a chance to know him. And she would be right back where she started, alone, with no money, no prospects, and a child to feed. She couldn't let that happen. She wouldn't let that happen.
Clara cleaned up the medical supplies, reheated the stew, and carried a tray to Eli's room. He was propped up in bed, looking pale and exhausted, but awake. "Where's Samuel?" he asked. "In our room. I told him to stay there until I came for him." "He's probably scared." "He is." "Tell him I'm okay." Clara set down the tray. "Tell him yourself, tomorrow, when you can stand without falling over." Eli almost smiled. Almost. "You're bossy." "I'm practical. There's a difference." That word again. "I'm fond of it." She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. "Clara." "Yes?" "Thank you. For patching me up. For everything." "You're welcome." She paused at the door. "Try to sleep. You'll heal faster." "Clara." She sighed. "What?" "I'm sorry." The words caught her off guard. "For what?" "For St. Louis. For leaving the way I did. For not—" He stopped, struggling with words that didn't come easily. "For not being better. For not giving you a choice." Clara stood very still, her hand on the doorframe. "Why are you saying this now?" "Because I almost died today. Because I looked up at the sky while I was lying in the snow and thought, if this is it, if this is how it ends, what have I done that mattered?" His voice roughened, and the only thing I could think of was that boy down the hall, the one I never knew existed. Clara felt tears prick her eyes. "That's not nothing," she said quietly. "No, it's not." Eli met her gaze. "I want to know him, Clara. Really know him. I want to be something to him besides a stranger who happens to share his face." "Then be something. Show up. Every day. Be present." She swallowed hard. "That's all any child needs. Someone who shows up." "Did your father show up?" "My father died when I was 20. But before that, yes, he showed up. Every day, no matter what." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. I had 20 good years with him. That's more than most people get."
They sat in silence for a moment. The storm had quieted to a whisper outside. The worst of it passed. "Get some sleep," Clara finally said. "We'll talk more tomorrow." "Yeah." She closed the door behind her and leaned against it, pressing her palms to her eyes. 3 years she'd hated this man. 3 years she'd blamed him for everything that went wrong in her life. And now here he was, wounded and vulnerable, apologizing for sins he hadn't known he'd committed. It didn't change the past, didn't erase the years of struggle and pain, but it was a start. Clara checked on Samuel before going to bed. The boy was wide awake, sitting up in the darkness, the wooden horse in his lap. "Is he okay?" Samuel whispered. "He's going to be fine. He got hurt, but I fixed him up." "You're good at fixing things." "I've had practice." Samuel was quiet for a moment. "Mama, is Eli my papa?" The question she'd been dreading, the one she'd danced around for 3 years. Clara sat on the edge of the bed and took her son's small hands in hers. "Yes," she said, "Eli is your papa." "For real?" "For real." "Does he know?" "He knows." Samuel processed this with the gravity only children possessed. "Does he want to be my papa?" "I think he's still figuring that out. But he's trying, sweetheart. He's really trying." "Is trying enough?" Clara thought of Eli's face when he'd apologized, the fear in his eyes when he'd asked if he could know Samuel, the way he'd taken their son's hand on the walk to the barn. "Sometimes," she said slowly, "trying is everything." Samuel nodded and laid back down, pulling the blanket up to his chin. "I'm glad he's okay," he said. "Me too, sweetheart." "Mama?" "Yes?" "I think I want him to be my papa. For real. Forever." Clara leaned down and kissed his forehead. "Then we'll work on making that happen." She stayed until he fell asleep, then returned to the kitchen to finish cleaning up. Through the window, she could see stars emerging as the clouds cleared. The storm was over. But another storm was coming. She could feel it in her bones. Victor Ashford wasn't going to stop. The gunshot today proved that. He wanted Thunder Ridge, and he was willing to hurt people to get it. They had 3 weeks to find $1,200. They had enemies circling like wolves, and they had a fragile, barely formed family that could shatter at any moment. Clara dried the last dish and put it away. Tomorrow, she thought. Tomorrow we start fighting back. 3 days passed. Eli healed faster than Clara expected. By the second morning, he was up and moving, ignoring her orders to rest. By the third, he was back in the saddle, riding out to check fence lines like nothing had happened. Stubborn man. Stubborn, infuriating, impossible man. But Clara had to admit, she respected it. The refusal to be broken. The determination to keep going no matter what. She understood that kind of stubbornness. She'd lived it for 3 years. Samuel had taken to following Eli like a shadow whenever the man was in the house. Not talking much, just watching, learning, absorbing everything his father did like a sponge soaking up water. Eli seemed uncomfortable with the attention at first. Clara caught him glancing at Samuel with an expression she couldn't quite read. Something between wonder and terror. But he didn't push the boy away. Didn't tell him to go bother someone else. Small victories. On the 4th morning, Clara found Eli at the kitchen table before dawn, papers spread before him, a cold cup of coffee at his elbow. "You're up early," she said. "Couldn't sleep." "The shoulder?" "The debt." He rubbed his eyes. "I've been over these numbers 100 times. No matter how I figure it, we're still $300 short." Clara poured herself coffee and sat across from him. "What about the timber idea?" "Takes too long. We'd need to cut, haul, and sell. That's a month's work minimum, and we don't have a month. The horse boarding? Nobody's got horses to spare this time of year. Everyone's hunkered down for winter. Water rights? Can't sell what I might need to survive. Eli shook his head. Face it, Clara, we're out of options. There's always another option. Yeah? Name one. Clara stared at the papers, her mind racing. Numbers and possibilities tumbled through her thoughts like leaves in a windstorm. What about the cattle you've already got? She asked slowly. The healthy ones. What are they worth? I can't sell breeding stock. That's next year's income. I'm not talking about selling. I'm talking about collateral. Eli frowned. What do you mean? You owe Ashford $1,200. But your cattle are worth more than that, aren't they? Even with the losses? Sure. The full herd's worth maybe $8,000. But, so what if you offered to secure the loan against specific animals, named cattle, documented and counted? If you default, he gets those cattle. But if you pay, he gets nothing. He'd never agree to that. Why not? He gets guaranteed payment either way. And if he's as smart as you say he is, he'd rather have cash than cattle. Cash is liquid. Cattle are work. Eli was quiet for a long moment, staring at the papers. It might buy us time, he said slowly. Renegotiate the terms. Push the deadline back. Time is all we need. Spring brings calving season. New cattle means new income. But we'd still owe the money. We just owe it later. Later is better than now. Clara leaned forward. Eli, right now you're drowning. You need to get your head above water before you can swim to shore. He looked at her then, really looked at her, and something shifted in his expression. You've thought about this a lot. I've had 3 years of figuring out how to survive when the numbers don't add up. How? How did you do it? Clara sat back, the question catching her off guard. I did what I had to. Took jobs no one else wanted. Lived in places no one else would live. Made every penny stretch until it screamed. She shrugged. You learn to be creative when the alternative is watching your child starve. Samuel never went hungry? Not once. I made sure of that. Her voice hardened. I went hungry. He didn't. Eli's jaw tightened. Clara, don't. She held up her hand. I don't want sympathy. I did what any mother would do. What I need you to understand is that I know how to fight when there's nothing left to fight with. And I'm telling you, we're not done yet. Samuel appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Mama, why are you yelling? I'm not yelling, sweetheart, just talking loudly. About what? Grown-up things. Samuel padded over to the table and climbed into the chair beside Eli. Without hesitation, he leaned against his father's arm. Eli went very still. Clara watched, holding her breath. This was the moment, the choice. Would he pull away or let the boy in? Slowly, almost hesitantly, Eli's hand came up to rest on Samuel's back. Morning, son, he said quietly. Samuel smiled. Morning, Papa. Papa. The word hung in the air like a sunrise, bright, new, full of possibility. Eli's eyes met Clara's across the table. She saw the fear there, the uncertainty, the doubt. But underneath it, something else. Hope. I'll ride to town today, he said. Talk to Ashford. See if he'll renegotiate. I'll come with you. No, it's too dangerous. If someone shot at me once, then you shouldn't go alone. Clara's voice was firm. Besides, I need supplies. The larder won't hold forever. What about Samuel? Dusty can watch him. The boy adores him. Eli hesitated, clearly wanting to argue, but he must have seen something in her face that told him it was pointless. Fine, we leave in an hour. The ride to Copper Creek took most of the morning. The roads were rough, churned to frozen mud by the storm and its aftermath. Clara sat beside Eli on the wagon seat, wrapped in every blanket they could spare. Samuel had cried when they left, clinging to Clara's skirt and begging to come along. It had taken all her resolve to peel him away and promise she'd return. Now, bouncing along the rutted road, she wondered if she'd made the right choice. "He'll be fine," Eli said, reading her thoughts. "Dusty's raised 3 kids of his own. He knows what he's doing." "I know. It's just—" Clara paused. "I've never left him before. Not once in 3 years." "Never?" "There was no one to leave him with, no family, no friends I could trust." Eli was quiet for a moment. "That must have been lonely." "It was." Clara pulled the blanket tighter. "But lonely is better than dead, and there were times when both felt equally likely." "What happened after I left? How bad did it get?" She didn't want to tell him, didn't want to open those wounds again. But something about the question, the genuine concern in his voice, made her answer. "Mrs. Harrington, the widow I worked for, she threw me out the day she found out I was pregnant. Didn't even let me pack my things, just out, in the street, with nothing." Jesus. "I found a room in a boarding house for working women. It wasn't much, but it was something. I took in mending, laundry, whatever I could find. The pregnancy made things harder. No one wants to hire someone who's going to be useless in a few months." "Did anyone help you?" "There was a woman, Mrs. Chen. She ran a laundry in the district. She let me work there when no one else would. Even let me bring Samuel after he was born." Clara's voice softened. "She didn't have to do that. Didn't owe me anything. But she did it anyway."
What happened to her?
"She died 2 years ago. Influenza." Clara swallowed hard. "After that, I was on my own again." Eli was silent for a long time. "I'm sorry," he finally said. "I know that doesn't change anything, doesn't fix what you went through. But I'm sorry." "I know. If I'd known—" "You'd have done what? Married me? Given up your ranch? Moved to St. Louis to be a shopkeeper?" "I don't know. Something. Anything." Clara shook her head. "It doesn't matter now. What's done is done. All we can do is move forward." "Is that what you want? To move forward?" "What I want is for Samuel to have a father who loves him. What I want is a safe place to raise my son. What I want—" She stopped, surprised by the emotion rising in her throat. "What?" "I want to stop being afraid all the time." Her voice cracked. "I want to wake up one morning and not wonder if this is the day everything falls apart. I want to feel safe. Just once. Just for a little while." Eli reached over and took her hand. His grip was warm and strong, rough with calluses from years of hard work. Clara felt the contact like an electric shock jolting through her system. She didn't pull away. "I can't promise you safe," he said quietly. "I can't promise you anything right now. But I can promise I'll try. Every day. Whatever it takes." "That's all anyone can do." They rode the rest of the way in silence, hands still linked between them. Copper Creek was exactly what Clara expected. A small town clinging to existence in the middle of nowhere. A main street lined with wooden buildings, a general store, a saloon, a church. The bank sat at the far end, solid and imposing, like a predator waiting for prey. Eli helped her down from the wagon. "Stay close," he said, "and if anything happens—" "I know. Run." "No." His eyes were intense. "Find Dusty, get Samuel, and leave." "Eli, promise me." Clara wanted to argue, wanted to tell him she wasn't going to abandon him, no matter what. But she saw the fear in his eyes, the desperate need to know his son would be protected. I promise, she said. They walked into the bank together. Victor Ashford was waiting for them. He sat behind a massive desk, dressed in a three-piece suit that cost more than most ranchers made in a month. His smile was wide and pleasant, and entirely false. "Mr. Thornton, what a pleasant surprise." His eyes slid to Clara. "And who is this lovely lady?" "My cook," Eli said shortly. "Mrs. Bennet." "Mrs. Bennet." Ashford rose and extended his hand. "A pleasure." Clara shook it briefly. His grip was soft, manicured, nothing like Eli's rough palm. "We need to talk about the loan," Eli said. "Ah, yes, the loan." Ashford settled back into his chair, fingers steepled. "I trust you've come to make payment?" "I've come to renegotiate." Something flickered behind Ashford's pleasant mask. "Renegotiate? I'm afraid that's quite impossible. The terms were clearly stated." "The terms said January. You moved it to November. That's not what we agreed." "Circumstances change, Mr. Thornton. Surely you understand. Winter is coming. The passes will close soon. I need to protect my investment." "Your investment is protected. I'm offering additional collateral." Ashford's eyebrow rose. "Oh?" Eli laid out the proposal Clara had helped him craft. Named cattle, documented inventory, guaranteed payment even if the cash came late. Ashford listened with apparent interest, but Clara could see the calculations running behind his eyes. He wasn't considering the offer. He was looking for weaknesses. "An interesting proposal," he said when Eli finished. "But I'm afraid I must decline." "Why? You'd get your money either way." "I have a responsibility to my other depositors. They expect timely returns on their investments."
I can't make exceptions, even for valued customers like yourself. Clara stepped forward.
"Mr. Ashford, may I speak frankly?" Both men turned to look at her. "By all means, Mrs. Bennet." "Your bank holds loans for a dozen ranches in this area. I've seen the records." She had, in Eli's office, names and numbers she'd committed to memory. "Most of those loans were issued under similar terms, 5 years, reasonable interest, flexible payment schedules." Ashford's smile tightened slightly. "Your point?" "My point is that you've never called a loan early before. Not once in the 5 years you've run this bank. So why start now?" "As I said, circumstances." "The circumstances are that you want Thunder Ridge. You've wanted it for years. The best grazing land in the valley. Water rights that control half the basin." Clara kept her voice level, but her heart was pounding. "You're not protecting an investment, Mr. Ashford. You're trying to steal one." The pleasant mask dropped. Ashford's face went cold, his eyes hard as flint. "You should be careful, Mrs. Bennet. Accusations like that could have consequences. So could fraud, or attempted murder." "Clara," Eli's voice held a warning, but she couldn't stop now, wouldn't stop. "Someone shot at Mr. Thornton 3 days ago, spooked his horse. He could have died." Clara stepped closer to the desk. "And isn't it convenient that just a week before you demanded early payment? If he'd died out there, what would have happened to the ranch?" "I'm sure I don't know what you're implying." "I'm implying that you're a coward who hires others to do his dirty work. I'm implying that you've been sabotaging Thunder Ridge for months, waiting for the right moment to swoop in. And I'm implying that if anything happens to Mr. Thornton or anyone on that ranch, the whole territory will know exactly who's responsible." Ashford stood slowly. "I think this meeting is over." "No." Eli's voice was quiet, but deadly. "It's not." He moved between Clara and the desk, his body a shield. "You want Thunder Ridge? Fine. Try to take it. But know this, Ashford, I'm not going to make it easy. I'm not going to lie down and let you steal what I've spent 8 years building."
Brave words from a man who can't pay his debts. I'll pay, every cent. And when I do, I want you to remember this moment. Remember what you tried to do. And know that I'll spend the rest of my life making sure everyone in this territory knows exactly what kind of man you are. The two men stared at each other across the desk. The tension was thick enough to cut. Finally, Ashford smiled. That same pleasant, false smile. You have until the end of November, Mr. Thornton. Not a day more. He picked up a pen and returned to his papers. Good day. They left the bank in silence. Clara's hands were shaking. She hadn't meant to say so much, reveal so much. But something about Ashford's smug face had broken through her caution. That was stupid, Eli said when they reached the wagon. I know. He'll come after us harder now. I know. You just made an enemy of the most powerful man in the territory. I know. Clara met his eyes. But I'm not sorry. Eli stared at her for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. God help me, he said. Neither am I. They bought supplies at the general store, loaded the wagon, and headed back to Thunder Ridge as the afternoon shadows lengthened. The ride was quiet, but different than before. Something had shifted between them. Clara could feel it in the air, in the way Eli glanced at her when he thought she wasn't looking. You were magnificent in there, he said finally. Terrifying, but magnificent. I was angry. I noticed. He's a bully. I hate bullies. So I gathered. Clara pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. My father used to say that bullies only have power when you give it to them. The moment you stand up, they crumble. They're not used to people fighting back. Your father sounds like a wise man. He was. Until he wasn't. She stared at the road ahead. He trusted someone he shouldn't have. A business partner. The man robbed him blind and disappeared. Father lost everything. The shame of it. She swallowed hard. He couldn't live with the shame. Eli's hand found hers again. I'm sorry. I was 20 years old, alone. No money, no family, no prospects. Clara laughed bitterly. And then, 3 months later, I met you. And I made everything worse. You gave me Samuel. That's not worse. That's the only good thing that came out of the whole mess. They rode in silence for a while, the wagon jolting over frozen ruts. What do we do now? Clara asked. Ashford isn't going to back down. No, he's not. So? Eli's jaw tightened. So we fight. We save every penny. We sell whatever we can spare. And we find a way to raise $1,200 in 3 weeks. And if we can't? Then we lose everything. The words hung between them, heavy with the weight of possibility. I won't let that happen, Clara said quietly. I've lost too much already. I won't lose this too. This? You mean the ranch? I mean... She stopped, uncertain how to express what she was feeling. I mean, whatever this is, what we're building, you and me and Samuel. Eli pulled the wagon to a stop. They were at the top of a ridge overlooking the valley below. Thunder Ridge spread out before them, tiny in the distance, smoke curling from the chimney. I'm going to say something, Eli said slowly, and I need you to hear it. Clara's heart stuttered. All right. 3 years ago, I made a mistake. I walked away from something that mattered because I was scared. Scared of connection. Scared of responsibility. Scared of feeling something for someone other than myself. Eli, let me finish. He turned to face her, his gray-blue eyes intense. I'm still scared. Terrified, actually. But I'm more scared of losing this, losing you and Samuel, than I am of what it might mean to keep you. Clara couldn't breathe. What are you saying?
I'm saying I want you to stay. Not just through winter. Forever. His voice roughened. I'm saying I want to be Samuel's father in every way that matters. I'm saying... He stopped, struggling with words that clearly didn't come easily. I'm saying I think I'm falling in love with you, Clara, and it scares the hell out of me. Tears burned in Clara's eyes. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you're strong and brave and stubborn as hell. I know you'd walk through fire for your son. I know you stood up to Victor Ashford without flinching. He reached out and cupped her face in his hands. I know that when I look at you, I see someone I want to spend the rest of my life trying to deserve. Eli, you don't have to say anything. I know it's too fast, too soon. I just needed you to know. Clara thought of 3 years of loneliness. 3 years of struggle and pain and fear. 3 years of watching other families and wondering what it would feel like to belong to someone. And here, finally, was someone offering exactly that. I'm scared too, she whispered. I've been scared so long I don't remember what safe feels like. We can be scared together. Is that enough? It's a start. She leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was soft at first, tentative. 2 wounded people testing the waters of something that could heal or destroy them both. Then Eli's arms came around her, pulling her close, and the kiss deepened into something fierce and hungry and full of 3 years of missed chances. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. We should get back, Clara said shakily. Samuel will be worried. Yeah. But Eli didn't move, just sat there, looking at her like she was something precious and unexpected. What? Nothing, just... He shook his head. Just thinking about how wrong I was. About everything. Wrong about what? About being alone. About not needing anyone. He picked up the reins and clicked to the horses. About what it means to be strong. They rode the rest of the way in silence, but it was a different silence now. Fuller. Warmer. Like coming home after a long journey. When they pulled up to the ranch house, Samuel burst through the door and launched himself at Clara before she'd even climbed down from the wagon. Mama, you were gone forever. Not forever, sweetheart, just a few hours. It felt like forever. Samuel's arms tightened around her neck. I missed you. I missed you too. Eli came around the wagon and ruffled the boy's hair. Hey, son, were you good for Dusty? Samuel nodded solemnly. I was very good. I helped feed the chickens. We don't have chickens. We do now. Dusty brought some from his friend's place. He said every ranch needs chickens. Eli and Clara exchanged glances. Did he now? Dusty appeared in the barn doorway, grinning. Figured the lady was right. Fresh eggs make a difference. Got 6 good layers and a rooster. Should have eggs by next week. Clara felt tears prick her eyes again. Damn. She was crying more in the past few days than she had in 3 years. Thank you, Dusty. Don't thank me. Thank the boy. He wouldn't stop talking about how his mama said you needed chickens. The foreman's grin widened. Kid's persuasive. Samuel beamed. That night, after dinner, after Samuel was tucked in bed with his wooden horse, Clara found Eli on the porch. He stood staring out at the darkness, shoulders tense. You're worried, she said. Ashford's not going to let this go. No. He'll come at us again. Harder this time. Then we'll be ready. Eli turned to look at her. You really believe that? After everything? Clara moved to stand beside him, shoulder to shoulder, facing the unknown together. I believe that 3 days ago you were lying in the snow, half dead, and now you're standing. I believe that a month ago I was alone in a city that wanted to destroy me, and now I'm here. I believe," she took a breath, "I believe that people like us don't survive by giving up. We survive by finding a way when there isn't one." Eli's hand found hers in the darkness. "What did I do to deserve you?" "Nothing. That's not how it works." She squeezed his fingers. "You don't deserve things. You earn them, day by day, choice by choice." "Then I'll earn it, whatever it takes." They stood together in silence, watching the stars emerge one by one in the vast Montana sky. 3 weeks. 3 weeks to save everything they were building. But standing there, hand in hand, Clara felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. 2 weeks. 2 weeks of counting every penny. 2 weeks of selling everything that wasn't nailed down. 2 weeks of Clara stretching meals thinner and thinner while pretending nothing was wrong. They'd raised $700, still $500 short. Eli sat at the kitchen table, staring at the numbers until they blurred. No matter how he figured it, the math didn't work. They'd sold spare equipment, winter supplies they couldn't afford to lose, even 2 horses that would have been useful come spring. Nothing was enough. Clara appeared in the doorway, a cup of coffee in her hands. "You should sleep." "Can't. The numbers won't change by staring at them." "I know." He pushed the papers away. "I just keep thinking there's something I'm missing, some angle I haven't considered." Clara sat across from him, setting the coffee between them. "There might be." "What do you mean?" She hesitated, her fingers tracing the edge of the cup. "I've been thinking about what Ashford said, about protecting his investment, about his responsibility to other depositors." So? So what if he's lying? What if there aren't other depositors? What if he's using his own money, money that shouldn't exist, to fund these loans? Eli frowned. "You think he's stealing?" "I think a man who's willing to shoot at you in broad daylight isn't above cooking the books." Clara leaned forward. "Think about it. He came to Copper Creek 5 years ago with nothing. Now he owns the bank, half the businesses on Main Street, and he's trying to grab the best ranch land in the territory. Where did that money come from?" "Could be inheritance, could be investments, could be fraud." Eli was quiet for a moment, turning the possibility over in his mind. "Even if you're right, how do we prove it?" "We'd need access to the bank records, the real ones, not the ones he shows the public." "That's impossible. He keeps those locked up tighter than Fort Knox." "Maybe not." Clara's eyes gleamed with something dangerous. His clerk. The nervous little man who was sitting in the corner when we visited. Did you see how he looked at Ashford? "Can't say I noticed." He was afraid. Not respectful. Afraid. Like a man who knows something he shouldn't and wishes he didn't. Eli leaned back in his chair. "You want to approach him?" "I want to find out what he knows. If Ashford is dirty, really dirty, that clerk is either part of it or a witness to it. Either way, he's leverage." "It's risky." "Everything's risky. But right now, we're going to lose anyway. At least this way, we have a chance." Before Eli could respond, Samuel's voice drifted down the hallway. "Mama? Papa? I can't sleep." Clara rose. "I'll go." "No." Eli stood first. "Let me." He purchased his walk down the hall to Samuel's room, his heart doing something complicated in his chest. 2 weeks of being called Papa, and he still wasn't used to it. Still felt the word like a gift he hadn't earned. Samuel sat up in bed, the wooden horse clutched to his chest. "Hey, son, what's wrong?" "Bad dream."
Eli sat on the edge of the bed. Want to tell me about it? Samuel shook his head, then changed his mind. There was a monster, a big one with mean eyes. He wanted to take our house. Something cold settled in Eli's stomach. Kids picked up more than adults realized. There's no monster, Samuel, I promise. But what if there is? What if he comes and takes everything and we have to leave? Eli gathered the boy into his arms, holding him close. Listen to me. No one is taking our home. No one is making us leave. I won't let that happen. Promise? I promise. Cross your heart? Eli made the gesture solemnly. Cross my heart. Samuel relaxed slightly, his small body softening against Eli's chest. Papa? Yeah? I'm glad you're my papa. For real. The words hit Eli like a punch to the gut. All the fear, all the doubt, all the uncertainty, none of it mattered compared to this small boy who trusted him completely. I'm glad too, son. More than you know. He stayed until Samuel fell asleep, then returned to the kitchen. Clara was still at the table, but she'd been crying. He could see the tracks on her cheeks, hastily wiped away. What's wrong? Nothing. Clara. She looked up at him, and the raw emotion in her eyes made his breath catch. I'm scared, Eli. I'm so scared. I've spent 3 years being strong, holding everything together, and I'm tired. I'm so tired of being afraid all the time. He crossed to her and pulled her to her feet, wrapping his arms around her. I know. What if we lose? What if Ashford wins and we have to leave? Where will we go? What will happen to Samuel? That's not going to happen. You can't promise that. I can promise I'll die before I let that man take our home. Clara pulled back, her eyes fierce through the tears. Don't you dare talk about dying. Samuel needs you. I need you. Then I won't die. I'll just fight. We'll fight. Together. Eli cupped her face in his hands. Together, he agreed. He kissed her then, slow and deep, trying to pour everything he felt into that single moment. All the fear and hope and desperate love that had grown between them in the space of weeks. When they broke apart, Clara was breathing hard. We need a plan, she said. We have a plan. We need a better plan. Then help me make one. They talked through the night, laying out options and contingencies. By dawn, they had something approaching a strategy. Clara would approach the bank clerk. His name was Horace Mills, and according to Dusty, he spent most evenings at the saloon, drinking alone. A lonely man was a vulnerable man. Eli would work on raising more cash, calling in every favor he was owed, pushing every angle they hadn't tried yet. And if all else failed, they'd go to the territorial marshal in Helena, make their accusations public, force Ashford into the light. It was risky, desperate, probably foolish, but they were out of options. Clara rode into town that afternoon, leaving Samuel with Eli and Dusty. The boy had protested, wanting to come along, but Clara had been firm. I need you to help your papa, she'd told him. He's got important work to do, and he needs a good helper. Samuel had puffed up with pride and marched off to the barn without another complaint. The ride to Copper Creek felt longer than before. Clara's mind raced with possibilities, rehearsing what she would say, how she would approach Horace Mills without arousing suspicion. She found him exactly where Dusty said he'd be, alone at a corner table in the saloon, nursing a whiskey that looked like it had been sitting untouched for an hour. Clara bought a cup of tea from the bartender, earning a raised eyebrow in the process, and made her way to Mills's table. Mr. Mills, may I sit? He looked up, startled. Recognition flickered in his eyes.
Mrs. Bennett, from the Thornton Ranch. You remember me? Hard to forget. He gestured to the empty chair. What are you doing here? Looking for answers. Clara sat, keeping her voice low. And I think you might have them. Mills's face went pale. I don't know what you mean. I think you do. I think you know exactly what Victor Ashford has been doing. The loans he's called early. The ranches he's stolen. The accidents that happen to anyone who gets in his way. I can't. Mills looked around nervously. You shouldn't be talking to me. Why not? What are you afraid of? Mrs. Bennett, please, you don't understand. Then help me understand. Clara leaned forward. I've got a son, Mr. Mills. A 3-year-old boy who just found his father after spending his whole life without one. And Victor Ashford is trying to take that away from him. From all of us. Something shifted in Mills's expression. A crack in the fear. He'll kill me if he finds out. He'll destroy you either way. Men like Ashford don't leave witnesses. Clara reached across the table, her hand covering his. But if you help us stop him, maybe there's another way. Mills stared at her hand like he'd never been touched with kindness before. What do you want to know? Everything. Where the money comes from, who he's paid off, what he's planning for Thunder Ridge. Mills took a shaky breath. It started 3 years ago. Ashford arrived in town with cash, lots of it. Said he'd made his fortune in mining investments back east. But I keep the books, Mrs. Bennett. I see what comes in and what goes out, and the numbers never added up. Go on. He's been laundering money through the bank, dirty money from God knows where, using it to buy up land, businesses, influence. Anyone who crosses him has accidents. Anyone who owes him money suddenly finds their loans called early. Can you prove it? Mills hesitated. I have copies, records I kept for insurance. I always knew someday he'd turn on me too. I just didn't know when. Clara's heart raced. Where are these records? Hidden. Safe. I won't tell you where until I know I'll be protected. Come to Thunder Ridge. We'll keep you safe until the marshal can be contacted. The marshal? Mills laughed bitterly. Sheriff Dawson is in Ashford's pocket. Has been for years. Not the local sheriff, the territorial marshal in Helena. Mills went very still. You'd really do that? Go over Ashford's head? I'd burn this whole territory to the ground if it meant protecting my family. Clara's voice was hard as iron. So yes, I'd really do that. For a long moment, Mills said nothing. Then, slowly, he nodded. All right, but we have to move fast. Ashford's planning something. I don't know exactly what, but I overheard him talking to Sheriff Dawson yesterday. Something about Thunder Ridge. Something about making sure Thornton wasn't a problem anymore. Clara's blood went cold. When? Soon. Maybe tonight. Maybe tomorrow. She was on her feet before he finished speaking. Get those records and come to the ranch as fast as you can. But now, Mr. Mills, there's no more time. Clara ran for her horse, her mind racing faster than her feet. Tonight. Ashford was making his move tonight. And Eli didn't know it was coming. The ride back to Thunder Ridge was the longest of Clara's life. Every minute felt like an hour, every mile like 10. By the time she saw the ranch house in the distance, the sun was already setting. Something was wrong. She knew it before she saw it. Felt it in her bones like a premonition of disaster. The barn door was open. Horses were loose in the yard, and smoke, thin gray smoke, was rising from somewhere behind the main house. No,
No, no, no. Clara kicked her horse into a gallop, fear clawing at her throat. She heard the gunshots before she reached the yard. 3 shots, close together. Then silence. Clara leaped from her horse before it had fully stopped, stumbling, catching herself, running toward the house. "Eli! Samuel!" The front door was splintered, hanging from one hinge. Inside, furniture was overturned. The kitchen table lay on its side. Broken glass covered the floor. "Samuel! Mama?" The voice came from upstairs. Clara took the steps 3 at a time, burst through the door to Samuel's room. He was there, huddled in the corner, the wooden horse clutched to his chest. Dusty stood in front of him, a rifle in his hands, blood seeping from a wound on his shoulder. "Thank God," Dusty's voice was strained. "Get the boy. Get him out of here." "Where's Eli?" "Outside. 4 men came. Ashford's men." The boss went after them. Clara's heart stopped. "Alone?" "Miguel and Tommy are with him. But Mrs. Bennett," Dusty's face was grim. "It's bad." Clara grabbed Samuel, lifting him into her arms. "We have to help him." "You have to get the boy safe first." "Dusty!" "That's what the boss would want. You know it is." She did know. That was the worst part. "Where can we go?" "Root cellar, behind the smokehouse. It's hidden. They won't find you there." Clara pressed a kiss to Samuel's forehead. "Close your eyes, sweetheart. Don't look." "Mama, I'm scared." "I know. But I need you to be brave. Can you do that for me?" Samuel nodded, burying his face in her shoulder. Clara ran, down the stairs, through the shattered door, across the yard. She could hear more gunshots now, coming from the direction of the north pasture. Men's voices shouting, a horse screaming. The root cellar was exactly where Dusty said it would be, a door set into the ground, covered with dirt and straw. Clara wrenched it open, lowered Samuel inside. "Stay here. Don't come out until I come for you." "No, Mama, don't leave me." "I have to help your papa." Clara's voice broke. "I have to." "What if you don't come back?" "I'll come back, I promise." She touched his cheek, memorizing the feel of his skin. "I love you, Samuel, more than anything in this world." "I love you too, Mama." Clara closed the cellar door and ran toward the gunfire. The fight was near the main corral. 4 men on horseback against Eli, Miguel, and Tommy on foot. It should have been a slaughter, but Eli had positioned himself behind the water trough, using it as cover while Miguel and Tommy flanked from either side. One of the attackers was already down. Another was wounded, struggling to control his horse. But the remaining 2 were closing in. Clara didn't think, didn't plan. She grabbed a pitchfork from the barn wall and charged. She caught the nearest rider by surprise, jabbing the pitchfork into his horse's flank. The animal reared, throwing its rider hard against the corral fence. He didn't get up. "Clara!" Eli's voice was somewhere between terror and fury. "What are you doing?" "Saving your life!" She ducked as the last rider swung at her head. "Duck!" Eli fired, and the rider toppled from his saddle. Silence fell over the yard. For a moment, no one moved. Then Eli was there, grabbing Clara's arms, his eyes wild. "Are you insane? You could have been killed!" "So could you. Where's Samuel?" "Root cellar. Safe." The tension drained from Eli's body so fast, he nearly collapsed. "Thank God." "Boss," Miguel's voice cut through the moment. "We got a problem." One of the attackers was still alive, the one Clara had unhorsed. He was trying to crawl away, leaving a trail of blood in the dirt. Eli walked over and planted his boot on the man's back. "Who sent you?" "Go to hell." "I asked a question." "And I told you to go to—" Eli pressed harder. The man screamed. "Try again." "Ashford!" The name came out in a rush. "Victor Ashford. He paid us to burn the ranch. Said make it look like an accident." "Where is he now?" "Town, at the bank. He's waiting to hear that the job's done." Eli looked at Clara, and something passed between them.
and understanding. This was it, the moment they'd been building toward. Miguel, tie this one up. Tommy, check on Dusty. Eli's voice was calm, controlled. Clara, get Samuel. What are you going to do? I'm going to end this. 20 minutes later, they were riding toward Copper Creek. Eli, Clara, Miguel, and 4 bound prisoners loaded into the back of a wagon, ready to testify to anyone who would listen. The bank was dark when they arrived, but a light burned in the window of the office upstairs. Ashford was there, waiting. Eli dismounted and handed Clara the reins. If anything goes wrong, take Samuel and ride. Don't stop until you reach Helena. Eli, promise me. Clara took his face in her hands. I love you, she said. Whatever happens, I love you. I know. He kissed her hard and fast. I love you too. Then he walked into the bank, and Clara could only watch and pray. The minutes stretched like hours. Clara stood in the street, heart pounding, ears straining for any sound from inside. Then, a single gunshot, glass shattering. Silence. Clara was running before she realized she'd moved, bursting through the bank's front door, taking the stairs 2 at a time. The office door was open. Inside, Eli stood over Victor Ashford, who lay on the floor clutching his shoulder. A pistol lay several feet away, apparently kicked out of reach. It's over, Eli said. All of it. Ashford's face was twisted with rage and pain. You think this changes anything? I own this town. I own the sheriff. I'll be out by morning. I don't think so. A new voice came from the doorway. Clara turned. Horace Mills stood there, a thick folder clutched to his chest. I think the territorial marshal will be very interested in these records, Mr. Ashford. Every transaction, every bribe, every dollar you've stolen. Ashford's face went white. You wouldn't dare. I already have. Mills's voice shook, but his eyes were steady. A rider left for Helena an hour ago. The marshal will be here within the week. For the first time since Clara had met him, Victor Ashford looked afraid. You'll hang for this, he spat. All of you. Eli holstered his pistol. Maybe, but you'll hang first. They left Ashford under guard, townsfolk who'd gathered at the commotion, some of whom had their own grievances against the banker, and rode back to Thunder Ridge. Samuel was still in the root cellar, exactly where Clara had left him. When she opened the door, he launched himself into her arms with a sob that shattered her heart. You came back. I promised, didn't I? Is Papa okay? Papa's fine. Everyone's fine. Clara held him close, breathing in the smell of his hair, the feel of his small body against hers. It's over, sweetheart. It's finally over. That night, after the wounds were tended and the house was put back in order as much as possible, they sat together by the fire. Eli, Clara, Samuel. A family. Battered, exhausted, but alive. So what happens now? Clara asked. Now we wait. The marshal will come. Ashford will be arrested, and we'll have to testify. And the debt? Eli smiled, a real smile, the first she'd seen in days. With Ashford gone, the bank passes to territorial control. Mills says the new management will restructure all his loans. We'll have time, maybe years. So we're safe? We're safe. Samuel, who had been dozing in Eli's lap, stirred. Papa? Yeah, son? Are the monsters gone? Eli looked at Clara over the boy's head. Something passed between them. Relief, love, the promise of a future they'd almost lost. Yeah, son. The monsters are gone. Samuel smiled and closed his eyes. Good. I like it better when there's no monsters. Clara leaned her head against Eli's shoulder. So do I, sweetheart. So do I. Spring came slow to Thunder Ridge. The snow melted in patches, revealing brown grass and frozen mud beneath. Icicles dripped from the eaves, creating small rivers that ran toward the barn. The cattle grew restless, sensing the change in the air. 3 months had passed since the night Victor Ashford's empire crumbled. The territorial marshal had arrived exactly when Horace Mills promised. Within a week, Ashford was in chains, headed to Helena to stand trial. The evidence Mills provided was damning. Years of fraud, theft, and conspiracy, laid bare in neat columns and careful handwriting. Sheriff Dawson resigned before he could be arrested, disappearing into the wilderness like the coward he was. No one mourned his absence. The bank passed to territorial control, just as Mills predicted. New management reviewed every loan Ashford had manipulated, restructuring terms for ranchers who'd been squeezed dry by his greed. Thunder Ridge's debt was extended 5 years at half the original interest. They would survive. More than survive. They would thrive. But for Clara, the real miracle wasn't the money. It was the man standing on the porch beside her, watching their son chase chickens across the yard. "He's going to fall," Eli said. "He always does. He always gets back up." Wonder where he learned that. Clara smiled, leaning into his warmth. His father, maybe. His mother, more like. Samuel tripped over his own feet, tumbled into the mud, and came up laughing. The chickens scattered in outraged clucks. "I caught one!" he shouted, holding up a single feather. "Look, Papa, I caught one!" "That's not quite how catching works, son." "It's a piece of one. That counts." Eli shook his head, but Clara saw the smile he was trying to hide. 3 months. 3 months of being a family, of learning each other's rhythms and habits and quirks. 3 months of meals shared and stories told and quiet evenings by the fire. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. Eli still struggled to express his feelings, still retreated into silence when the weight of responsibility pressed too heavy. Clara still woke sometimes in the middle of the night, heart racing, certain that everything good was about to be taken away. Old wounds healed slowly, but they healed. "I've been thinking," Eli said. "Dangerous pastime." "Clara." "Sorry, go on." He turned to face her, and something in his expression made her breath catch. "We've been living here together for 3 months, sharing meals, sharing—" He paused, color rising in his cheeks. "Sharing everything." "Is this going somewhere?" "I'm trying to get there if you'd stop interrupting." Clara pressed her lips together, fighting a smile. "The point is," Eli continued, "we've been living as a family, in every way that matters. But there's one thing missing." "What's that?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, something that caught the morning light. A ring. Simple gold band. No stone, no fancy setting. Just a circle of metal that meant everything. "Eli." "I know it's not much. I know you deserve better. Diamonds and fancy things. But this was my grandmother's. My father gave it to my mother the day they married. And now I want to give it to you." Clara's vision blurred with tears. "You're asking me to marry you." "I'm asking you to make official what's already true." He took her hand, sliding the ring onto her finger. "I'm asking you to be my wife, Clara. Not because I have to. Not because of Samuel. Because I love you. And I can't imagine spending the rest of my life with anyone else." The ring fit perfectly. Of course it did.
"Yes."
Clara whispered. "Yes?"
"Yes, you impossible man. Yes, I'll marry you." Eli's face broke into a smile so bright it rivaled the sun. He pulled her close and kissed her, deep and thorough, right there on the porch where anyone could see. Clara didn't care. Let the whole territory watch. Let them gossip and wonder and speculate. She was done hiding, done being ashamed. She was going to marry the father of her child, and nothing had ever felt more right. "Mama? Papa?" Samuel's voice came from below. "Why are you kissing?" They broke apart, laughing. "Because I asked your mama to marry me," Eli said. Samuel's face scrunched with confusion. "I thought you were already married." "Not officially." "What's officially?" "It means we'll have a ceremony. In the church. With the preacher and witnesses and everything proper." "Will there be cake?" Clara laughed through her tears. "Yes, sweetheart. There will be cake." "Then I approve." Eli hoisted the boy onto his hip, mud and all. "Good, because we couldn't do it without your approval." "I know." Samuel's tone was matter-of-fact. "I'm very important." "The most important," Clara agreed. They stood together on the porch, the three of them, watching the world wake up around them. A family. Finally, truly, completely. A family. The wedding took place 2 weeks later. The church in Copper Creek was small, but it overflowed with people. Ranchers from across the territory came to witness the union, some out of curiosity, some out of genuine affection. All of them aware that they were watching something rare. A second chance. Clara wore a dress she'd sewn herself, cream-colored cotton with lace at the collar. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive, but Eli looked at her like she was wearing diamonds and silk. "You're beautiful," he whispered as she reached the altar. "You're biased." "Damn right I am." The preacher cleared his throat. "Shall we begin?" The ceremony was simple. Traditional vows spoken in steady voices. Rings exchanged with trembling hands. A kiss that drew cheers from the assembled crowd. But the moment Clara would remember forever came after, when Samuel tugged at Eli's sleeve. "Papa?" "Yeah, son?" "Does this mean Mama won't leave?" Eli knelt down, bringing himself to the boy's eye level. "Your mama's never going to leave. Neither am I. We're a family now. Official." "Forever?" "Forever." Samuel threw his arms around Eli's neck, squeezing tight. "Good. I like forever." Clara watched them, her heart so full it hurt. This was what she'd dreamed of during all those lonely years. This was what she'd prayed for in dark rooms when Samuel was sick and she had nothing to give but desperate hope. A father for her son, a home that couldn't be taken away. A love that didn't demand or diminish, but simply existed, steady as the mountains that ringed the valley. She'd found it. Against all odds, against all reason, she'd found it. The reception was held at Thunder Ridge, tables set up in the yard, food prepared by neighbors who insisted Clara shouldn't cook at her own wedding. Dusty appointed himself master of ceremonies, telling increasingly embellished stories about Eli's bachelor days, while the man himself turned progressively redder. "And then," Dusty was saying, "the boss tried to break this wild Mustang. Thing threw him so hard he landed in the water trough. Had to fish him out like a drowned cat." "That's not how it happened," Eli protested. "That's exactly how it happened. I was there." "You were drunk." "I was festive. There's a difference." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Clara leaned against Eli's shoulder, warm and content. "Your friends are terrible. The worst." "I like them." "So do I." As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Clara found herself standing apart from the crowd,
watching. Eli was dancing with Samuel, the boy's feet on his father's boots, both of them laughing at their clumsiness. Dusty and Miguel were arguing about something near the punch bowl. Tommy was trying to impress a young woman from town, with limited success. This was her life now. These people. This place. Home. "Mrs. Thornton?" Clara turned. Horace Mills stood behind her, looking uncomfortable in a suit that was slightly too large. "Mr. Mills, I didn't expect to see you here." "Wasn't sure I'd be welcome, considering." "Considering you saved our lives? I think that earns an invitation." Mills ducked his head, embarrassed. "I just wanted to say, I'm glad it worked out. For all of you. You deserve happiness after everything you've been through." "So do you, Mr. Mills. What will you do now that the bank's under new management?" "They've asked me to stay on, help rebuild trust with the community." He smiled shyly. "I think I might even be good at it, now that I'm not spending all my time covering up crimes." "I think you will be." Clara extended her hand. "Thank you, Horace, for everything." He shook it, his grip firmer than she remembered. "Thank you, Mrs. Thornton, for believing I could be brave." He wandered off toward the food table, and Clara turned back to watch her husband and son. Her husband. The word still felt new, precious, like a gift she was afraid to unwrap too quickly for fear it might disappear. But it wouldn't disappear. Not this time. Not ever again. Eli caught her eye and smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his whole face. She smiled back, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, Clara Thornton felt no fear at all. Summer passed in a blur of hard work and small joys. The ranch flourished. Calving season brought new life, dozens of healthy animals that would ensure the future of Thunder Ridge. Clara kept the books now, officially, her careful management stretching every dollar further than anyone thought possible. Samuel grew like a weed, shooting up inches almost overnight. He rode Bess every day, his confidence in the saddle growing until Eli declared him a natural. He learned to help with the chickens, to check fence lines, to do all the small tasks that made a ranch run. He also learned to read. Clara taught him in the evenings, patient lessons by the fire while Eli pretended not to watch. By August, Samuel was sounding out simple words. By September, he was reading whole sentences. "The cat sat on the mat," he announced one night, so proud he practically glowed. "Excellent," Clara said. "Now try the next one." "The dog ran to the—" Samuel's brow furrowed in concentration. "Barn. The dog ran to the barn." "Perfect. I'm going to read every book in the world, Mama." "That's a lot of books." "I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway." Eli looked up from the harness he was mending. "That's the attitude, son. Never let anyone tell you what you can't do." "Did people tell you what you couldn't do, Papa?" "All the time. Said I couldn't build a ranch from nothing. Said I couldn't survive alone in the territory. Said I couldn't—" He paused, glancing at Clara. "Said I couldn't have a family." "But you did. You did all of it." "I did, because I didn't listen to the people who said I couldn't." Samuel nodded solemnly, absorbing this wisdom. "I'm not going to listen either." Good boy. October brought the first cold snap, temperatures plummeting overnight, frost coating everything in silver. Clara woke to find Eli already gone, out checking on the cattle with Miguel and Tommy. She made breakfast, tended the fire, helped Samuel with his lessons. Normal, routine, the quiet rhythm of a life well lived. When Eli returned, stomping snow from his boots,
his cheeks red with cold. Clara handed him coffee without being asked. "How are they?" "Good. All accounted for. We're ready for winter." "Better prepared than last year?" Eli smiled, pulling her close. "Last year I didn't have you. Didn't have any of this." He kissed her forehead. "I'd say we're considerably better prepared." Flatterer. Truth teller. Samuel appeared in the doorway, still in his nightshirt. "Is it snowing?" "Not yet, but soon." "Can we make a snowman when it does?" "Of course." "A big one? Bigger than me?" "Bigger than the barn." "Papa, that's impossible." "Maybe, but we can try." Samuel considered this, then nodded. "I like trying, even when it's impossible." "That's because you're a Thornton," Eli said. "We don't give up." "And a Whitmore," Clara added. "We don't give up either." "What about a Bennett?" Samuel asked, using the name Clara had given him for 3 years. "Bennett was just a name I borrowed, sweetheart. Whitmore is who we really are. But now we're all Thorntons, all 3 of us." "4," Samuel said. Clara blinked. "4? The baby. That makes 4." The world went very quiet. Eli's hand tightened on Clara's arm. "Samuel, what baby?" "The one in Mama's tummy." Samuel's tone was matter-of-fact, as if he were discussing the weather. "Dusty said she's got a little one coming. He said he could tell by the way she walks." Clara's hand flew to her stomach. She'd suspected. For weeks now, she'd suspected. The missed courses, the morning sickness she'd attributed to nerves, the bone-deep exhaustion that wouldn't lift. But she hadn't said anything, hadn't dared to believe it might be true. "Clara?" Eli's voice was barely a whisper. "Is it true?" She looked into his eyes, those gray-blue eyes she'd fallen in love with twice now, and felt tears spill down her cheeks. "I think so. I wasn't sure. I didn't want to say anything until—" She didn't get to finish. Eli swept her into his arms, lifting her off her feet, spinning her around while Samuel squealed with delight. "A baby! We're having a baby!" "Eli, put me down. I'm going to be sick." He set her down immediately, his face a mix of joy and concern. Sorry. Are you okay? Do you need to sit? Should I get the doctor?" "I'm fine. I'm pregnant, not dying." "But you need rest, and food, and—" "Eli." Clara took his face in her hands, forcing him to focus. "I'm fine. We're fine. All 4 of us." 4. His voice cracked on the word. 4. "I'm going to be a big brother." Samuel was jumping up and down now, unable to contain his excitement. "I'm going to teach the baby everything. How to ride and read and chase chickens and—" "Slow down, sweetheart. The baby won't be here for months yet." "How many months?" Clara did the math in her head. "Spring, probably. April or May." "That's forever." "It'll go faster than you think." She smiled at Eli, who still looked like he'd been hit over the head with a frying pan. "Are you all right?" I don't—" He swallowed hard. "I never thought I'd have this. Any of this. A wife, a son, and now another child. It's more than I ever—" His voice broke. Clara pulled him close, letting him bury his face in her shoulder. "It's okay," she whispered. "It's okay to feel too much. I don't deserve this." "You don't deserve it. You earned it. Every day, every choice, every time you showed up when it mattered." She pulled back, meeting his eyes. "You're a good man, Eli Thornton. It's about time you started believing it." "Help me believe it?" "Every day, for the rest of our lives." Samuel wedged himself between them, wrapping his arms around both their legs. "Family hug," he announced. "Nobody moves until I say so." They stood there, the three of them tangled together in the kitchen, laughing and crying and holding on tight. A family, growing larger, growing stronger, growing into something neither of them had dared to dream. Winter came and went. The baby grew inside Clara, changing her body, changing her life. Eli fussed over her constantly, refusing to let her lift anything heavier than a spoon, driving her half mad with his protectiveness. She loved every minute of it. Samuel talked to the baby every night, pressing his ear against Clara's stomach, whispering secrets only he and his sibling would ever know. "I told her about the chickens," he reported one evening, "and about Bess, and about how Papa makes funny faces when he's thinking hard." "I do not make funny faces." "You do, Papa. Your forehead gets all wrinkly." Clara laughed so hard she nearly choked. Spring arrived with a rush of warmth and color, wildflowers blooming across the valley, new life bursting from every corner of the ranch. The baby came on a night in late April, after hours of labor that left Clara exhausted and exhilarated in equal measure. A girl, small and perfect and screaming with outrage at being brought into the world. Eli held her like she was made of glass, tears streaming down his face. "She's beautiful. She looks like a potato. A beautiful potato. The most beautiful potato I've ever seen." Clara laughed weakly. "What are we going to name her?" They discussed it endlessly, going around and around without ever settling on anything. But now, looking at the tiny face, Clara knew. "Rose." Eli looked up. "Rose? My grandmother's name. She was the strongest woman I ever knew. Survived war, famine, losing 2 husbands. Never stopped fighting. Never gave up. Rose Thornton." Eli tested the name, rolling it around in his mouth. "I like it." "Can I see?" Samuel's voice came from the doorway, where Dusty had been keeping him distracted. "Come here, sweetheart." Samuel approached the bed cautiously, his eyes wide. "She's so small." "You were that small once." "I don't believe you." "It's true." Samuel reached out one careful finger, touching his sister's tiny hand. Rose's fingers curled around his, gripping tight. "She likes me," Samuel breathed. "Of course she does. You're her big brother." "I'll protect her, forever and ever. I promise." Eli's arm came around Clara's shoulders, pulling her close. "Look at us," he murmured. "A year ago I was alone in this house, convinced I'd never have a family. Now I've got a wife, a son, a daughter, everything I never knew I wanted." "Any regrets?" "Just one." "What's that?" "That it took me so long to find you." Clara leaned her head against his shoulder, watching their children, in the golden morning light. "We found each other when we were supposed to. Not a moment before, not a moment after." "You believe that?" "I believe that everything in my life, every struggle, every hardship, every moment of fear, led me here, to this room, to this family, to you." She looked up at him, her heart so full it ached. "I wouldn't change any of it." Eli kissed her, soft and sweet. "Neither would I." Samuel climbed onto the bed, careful not to jostle his new sister, and curled up against Clara's side. "Can we stay like this forever?" he asked sleepily. "Forever's a long time," Clara said. "I know, but I want it anyway." Eli pulled the blanket over all of them, his family gathered close. "Then we'll have it," he said. "Forever. All of us. Together." Outside, the sun rose over Thunder Ridge, painting the mountains in shades of gold and pink. The cattle lowed in the pastures,
The chickens clucked in their coop. The world went on, as it always did, indifferent to the small miracles happening within its borders. But in that house, in that room, something precious had taken root. A family built not from obligation or accident, but from choice, from courage, from the stubborn refusal to give up when everything said they should. Clara closed her eyes, her husband's heartbeat steady against her cheek, her children's warmth surrounding her. She had spent 3 years running, 3 years fighting, 3 years believing she would never find the safety she craved. And now, finally, the running was over. She was home. They all were. And nothing, not winter storms or scheming bankers or all the hardships the world could throw at them, would ever take that away. Because they were Thorntons, and Thorntons never gave up.